Welcome back to Ozarks Tonight. Well, it's the time of the year where college acceptance letters start rolling into households here in the Ozarks, and for families it can be a really exciting time that their son or daughter got accepted to a local college or university. But then comes the big question: how do you actually pay for college? There's a lot of different ways you can do that. For saving, you can save. There's scholarships. Shane Cowger from Arvis Bank is joining us today to talk about all of those options to make sure your son or daughter has a way to pay for their college. Shane, thanks for being here. We always talk about saving, and saving's never a bad thing, right? And the same thing applies to saving for college as well.
Right, yeah. We're living this today. I have a daughter in school, in college at Missouri State, so gone through this experience and getting another daughter, getting ready for her to go into school as well. So, yeah, it's never too early to start. Everybody's seen the statistics about college education, continuing education, and just in general that cost is going up. And so if you don't start sooner than later, right, that cost, you can get a little bit surprised when you see that tuition bill. If you're choosing to help your son or daughter, you might be a little bit surprised what that cost is.
Definitely. So for new parents that are just now having kids, is this the time to start thinking about saving, putting money aside in an account every month?
Yeah, absolutely. You can do it a number of different ways. Mm-hmm. You can do just a traditional savings account or a separate checking account. Make sure you have the financial discipline to not touch those things. Another great way is a 529 plan. Mm-hmm. You can set that up with a financial advisor. Anyone can contribute to that. So we had a 529 plan for both of my oldest two kids, and so my parents and my in-laws and aunts and uncles, brothers and sisters, they can all contribute to that 529 plan. It's not as cool as having a present around birthday time, but when your son or daughter goes to college, you really appreciate those gifts back.
For sure, and they might not appreciate it right now instead of getting a gift, but right, when you have to pay a student loan payment every month down the road when they're in their 20s or 30s, they're probably going to appreciate it.
Absolutely, and that's the thing that I think my oldest daughter, she was surprised when we saw what was in the 529 plan. At the time, she was very appreciative of that money being there. It allowed her some seed money to not worry about student debt. And no college student really wants any student debt for that matter. But if you can minimize that, it's best to start saving.
For sure, and if you are saving for 5 to 10 years in advance of your kid going to college, how often should you check in on your plan? Yeah. How often should you put your eyes on it?
So, if you have really good discipline, the discipline is set up an automatic draft from a checking account going into a 529 plan or into another type of account that you're going to use for tuition. If you set it up on a monthly basis, you get accustomed in your budget, not to rely on the $25, $50 or whatever you can do. Some other advice I would have is if you get an increase in your compensation, many of us saw some increase. If you can take a portion of that and set it aside in a lump sum, that also can help. If you have a second job or a second hobby that creates another stream of income, using that money and putting that again in a 529 plan or a savings account or a checking account, that also can help you. But setting it up in an automatic way on a monthly basis, however your income comes in, is really the best way.
And it really does add up over the long haul, for sure. Now let's talk about scholarships. If you need to bridge the gap a little bit between the money that you've saved and the cost of tuition, a lot of kids get some financial aid scholarships, but there's many scholarship options out there available as well.
Definitely, and what we have learned was the junior year is that time to start exploring in high school, and so because there's hundreds upon hundreds of scholarships for single parents, scholarships for people who served in the military, an abundance of scholarships, but it takes time to fill out those applications, and it takes discipline as well. And so just making sure you fully understand what you're signing up for, but exploring all of those avenues. Most high school guidance counselors can help you with that as well, that process. So my experience has been that junior year, start exploring and then.
For sure. And in your experience, what is the best way to search for these scholarships that are available?
Yeah, so you have to fill out what's called a FAFSA application. It's FAFSA, and that's a requirement. In that, you'll get notification back if you qualify, your student qualifies for some type of scholarship or financial aid. If you don't, then you can start exploring those scholarship opportunities. Again, going to a guidance counselor has been really good for our kids because they can then guide them on some resources that are available, anywhere from some books or websites. Really, there's a number of different avenues. Some employers offer their employees' children scholarships as well, so talking to your HR department to see if that's available for you as well. But those are some of the things that I would advise people to do.
For sure. And once you do, if you're able to nab some of these scholarships going forward, you know, a lot of them you have to renew every single year, and there are some requirements as well. And what have you run into, some of the requirements to keep these scholarships year after year?
Some have a GPA requirement. Making sure your son or daughter is fulfilling and going to classes, especially that first year, is a little tricky. But, you know, making sure that they're staying up on their grades. Also, there's a community service aspect to some of these scholarships, so making sure they're fulfilling those requirements as well. Typically, once you qualify for a scholarship, you'll receive a letter, and then in that letter, it should spell out the requirements of keeping that scholarship intact for future years. You know, if you're lucky enough to land a scholarship that is a true 4-year scholarship, those are kind of few and far between. They're usually semester or year after year. So just making sure that you're staying on top of those requirements is really important.
Definitely. And before we let you go, Shane, the number one tip that you have for parents at home that have you know, kids that will be going to college one day, what's the number one thing you can leave them with here today?
Yeah, well, my advice is start early. And even if your son and daughter is in high school today, start today. If you haven't sent any money back, if you want to help them, start setting some money back today, and being disciplined with a routine, a transfer that's going from a 529 plan from your checking account. That's the advice I would give them.
All right, awesome. Shane Calger from Arvis Bank. Shane, thanks for being here today.
Thank you for the invite.
Absolutely. We'll be back with more right after this.